It's the Pikey Loughz Show, Talking Taipans. With Chris Pike and Alex Loughton come to you with everything that is 100% Taipans. Let's go. It's Talkin Taipans.
Hello and welcome to a special NBL Cup edition of the Pikey Loughz Show. We're talking Taipans, and there's plenty to discuss around the Cairns Taipans in the NBL. They've already played their first two games now in Melbourne for the NBL Cup, playing some good basketball too, but there's some mixed news with some injury news thrown in there as well. But as we record this, we've got two more games upcoming over the next few days to look forward to, and there's plenty to break down. We'll have a special guest on this week's show as well. So let's get straight into it. I'm Chris Pike, one half of the show, but the Taipans legend himself, Alex Loughton. How do we find you this week?
Hey, g'day, Chris. Really good, mate. Excited to see these games starting to roll through with the NBL Cup. And obviously with all that unsettlement around, will fans be able to get there? Will they not? It's great to see that they're able to get some punters into the stands and enjoy the contest coming in thick and hard. And the highlights that we've seen coming out of the NBL Cup so far are just been unbelievable. Some of the top 10 plays just been pretty fun to watch. So for the Taipans, of course, you mentioned that Majok Deng injury, which is really bad news. Unlucky for the Taipans, but a couple of games starting to move in the right direction, starting to play winning basketball, not quite getting over the line for one of them, but we're seeing some good progression.
This episode of the Pikey Loughz Show is proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio, less pain, more life, and Statton's Plumbing Company, plumbers who care.
I think so. I think they're now playing the type of basketball we expected to see from this Taipans team. We've seen Scott Machado really take ownership of the team as well, but we've seen other guys step up. Jordan Nartai is stepping up to play the best basketball of his NBL career. Mirko Jeric's now come back, and he's hasn't missed a beat since he's come back.
He's hungry.
Kite Noy just had his career best night. Cam Oliver's still playing some good basketball. So there's a lot to like, and as you said, a really impressive comeback win against the Illawarra Hawks. That was a really impressive performance. And then had their chances against Melbourne United. It was only the last couple of minutes where Melbourne really got on top, and that's the best team in the competition right now. So there was a lot to like from the first two games. To go one-on-one against the teams that have been the top two teams so far this season, I don't think it was too bad of a result overall. And you're right, there's been plenty of excitement in the NBL Cup overall. What have you made of those, I guess, the first 8 games in 4 days, and now we've already seen the start of the second week with a couple of pretty exciting games to open the second week too?
Well, I think the players are getting into a bit of a groove. They're getting into that routine of playing every other day, and they're really, this is their only chance in the day to really run around, and this should be the highlight of their day, because there's nothing else they can do outside of the games. This is it. So you can see them actually enjoying themselves a bit when they were able to get up and down the floor and throw down some dunks and kind of get themselves going. This is the highlight of their day to be able to pump their own tires with some good play. It's really crucial. But look, for the Taipans, I think they got a bit of the monkey off their back with a win against the Hawks. You look at those first two games against the Hawks and you kind of go like, ooh, like how is this? Is this
20-point losses basically?
Oh, it's a big hole to claw back. But winning the way they did, I mean, 119 to 109, it's the monster effort, and I think it might have even surprised Coach Gorgon. They were scrambling as well. They seemed to be throwing junk defenses at the Taipans those first couple of games, and even though they weren't polished junk defenses, they still put the Taipans on the back foot. Now the Taipans have had a bit of momentum, a bit of a few runs on the board, and they were cooking. And the balance is right with the threes and the free throw line attempts. Before, we were seeing over 10 more 3-point attempts against their opponent, and basically maybe 9 or 10 free throw attempts by getting to the stripe. Now they've brought those 3-point attempts way back, and now the free throw, causing the ref to make a decision. They're getting to the line at least that 19 or 20 times. So they're shooting more from that free throw line than their opponent, and they're also shooting less threes than their opponents. That's the big switch in the balance. And I think that's more of a winning formula, but in my book.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And they just seem to have found that spark as well. If I look at the Hawks game on the Saturday, I mean, the Hawks they're a good team. They've got a lot of firepower. So it was no surprise to find.
And they're cooking.
Down.
They've been cooking.
Yeah.
They got every reason to be full of confidence and going into that game. Even when they were up in that game, you could tell that they were just had a bit of swagger about them. Oh man, we got this again. But then, yeah. Like, what did you see? How did you see the Taipans turn it around in that Hawks that moment?
Yeah, there was a moment midway through the third quarter. So the Hawks were still up, just about double figures. But then we've seen the coaches' challenge introduced for the first time in the NBL during this NBL Cup. So the coach gets to challenge one referee's call. He has to blow a timeout to do it. So you do need to make sure you're pretty sure that you've got it right. But they were able to get it right. So Mike Kelly got the call right. And they were able to reverse the possession. And from a result, Mirko Jeric went down and hit a three. On the back of that, then Scott Machado just caught fire, hit 3 threes in about a minute. And all of a sudden, the Taipans were right back in the game. And really, throughout the last quarter, they outplayed the Hawks and
got the tails
ran away with it. But I think it was all during that timeout. I think the Taipans decided to take a stand. I think Scotty actually led the discussion where they looked each other in the eye. And he talked about a post-match where he likes how vocal the group is in practice and how they hold each other to account and how they challenge each other to make sure they're doing the right thing. But during games, they don't always do it. But he noticed during this game, they made a stand to do that during that third quarter. And it was in that timeout, which just happened to be the one that Mike used for the coaches challenge, where all that seemed to happen. And after that, they played some winning basketball.
Well, emotions were high. The coach got the call in their favour. They could feel that momentum switch, and Machado just he made an exclamation mark, didn't he? He made that the point to drive home to the players. This is our moment. This is our time. And then got he's got the cloud. He's got the platform, and the players were ready to buy in. And they'd had enough. They'd had enough of an up and down sort of start to the season where their expectations weren't met, and that was the moment. I agree with you 100% that they made a collective decision that things were going to change, and they were all in on this. That's the thing; they were all in from that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get to the end of the game, and you've had a really impressive win, but then you've got so many guys stepping up. I mean, Machado was unbelievable, and his numbers back it up: 31 points and 8 rebounds, 7 assists. But he had so much help. Mirko Jeric playing his first game back, 16 points and 6 assists. Jordan Artai, the best of his career just about, hit 5 threes, 17 points. Majok Deng, unfortunately, gets hurt in the next game against Melbourne, but he put up 13 points and 7 rebounds. And again, for the second time in a row, we talked about this in the win before the NBL Cup, Cam Oliver didn't have to do everything, so he still contributed strongly, 13 points and 10 rebounds. Yeah, I mean, to me, the key was that Scotty played fantastic, but he had a lot of others coming along for the ride too.
Well, specifically, I mean, when we talk about that makeup of how they're scoring and getting to the free throw line, so they were 15 of 19 from the free throw line, and the Hawks got they were 9 of 10 from the free throw line. So which team is the aggressor? Which team is forcing the referees to make a decision, to make a call? It's the Taipans that win that battle there, and by 9 points. Like this is an 80% shooting sort of position on the floor. Free throws are guaranteed pretty much 80% based on all the numbers that the club's putting up. So they shot 78% for that game, but in general, around 80% is a good clip, and that's sort of a good team goal. 3-pointers, so 18 of 35 attempts, which is still an impressive clip, 51%. But the Hawks were 16 of 37. So the Taipans shot less than the Hawks, by 2 shots less. Now 16 of 37 is 43% to the Taipans 51%. But in previous games, we were seeing 40 attempts to 30 attempts from 3 to their opponents. And at not a great percentage, they were sort of settling. And then that was coupled with the 10 free throw attempts. So we're seeing basically double the free throw attempts now, and they've reduced the number of threes attempted. So basically, I think that's the big numbers, and everyone's buying in, aren't they? You said Jordan Atai had a great game. He played 30 minutes, 17 points. That's a huge contribution. And Jarek coming back into the mix, getting 16 off the bench. So you got a total of 23 points coming from the bench. That's huge. I mean, we're hoping for around that 25-point mark. That'll put you in Final Four contention and strong postseason presence. And that's been lacking a bit too. Points off the bench or contributions from the bench. It's not always points. It's second effort players, hustle players. But contributions in general, I guess the easiest way to look at it is that chipping in on the points column. So 23 points off the bench, and those 3-point sort of selections, and then getting to the free throw line was huge. So I think the Hawks, it was it could have easily gone the other way, where they were comfortable going down the stretch thinking, here's another 20-point win to us if we keep pushing here. Well, they were on the back foot finally, and I think the Taipans did a great job just turning that tide in their favour, and a great way to start the NBL Cup.
Now, Loughz, I've got to ask you, have you ever gone 0 of 15 in a game like Deng and Dell did for the Hawks in that game?
Look, it's yeah. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. But you know what? The shooter's mentality is, next one's good. Next one's good.
Yep.
Next one's good. So 0 for 10 from 2, 0 for 5 for 3. The next one's good, right? The next one's good. We'll have to check the stats on what the next game was, but
I think he played okay the next game and hit a few threes. Yeah.
Sometimes you can just be off, so it's probably once in a blue moon. But he's certainly proven on various games that he's more than capable of bringing.
NBA, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, how important was this win? Because I thought these first two games are probably the toughest two games that the Taipans are going to face during the NBL Cup against the Hawks and United. So I thought, obviously you aim for 2 wins, but I thought realistically going 1-1 from these first two games would be a good result. So how important was getting this win to take some of the pressure off, to make the game against Melbourne not a must-win game? Because if you went 2-8, it's probably no coming back. But suddenly being at 3-6 or 3-7, it's not too bad considering the 6-game losing streak that did go on.
We know the NBL Cup's going to make and break every single team. So you either come out on top. I think there'll be a big divide. Those teams that actually make it through are going to sort of keep on sailing after this NBL Cup. The teams that are breaking, basically, the ones that ends up at the tail end, I think it's going to be hard for them to come back into the fold, into that top 4 contention. So it was a huge weekend for the Taipans. To get that first win, certainly a huge thing. But yeah, splitting the 2 hardest games, or the first 2 games of the NBL Cup, I think is the bare bones of being satisfied with that kind of weekend. Obviously, dropping 2 would have been a disaster. And I thought the way they played that Melbourne United game was pretty admirable, and I think they possibly should have got it. They're just unable to hold on there. But it's 2 tough opponents, and I think Melbourne starting to lose a bit of wind in their sails as well, because they had their first loss as well, so it's, I think everyone's, the lower teams are stepping up, and the top of the higher ranked teams are starting to show a few cracks. So it's kind of anyone can sort of beat anyone on the night.
Yeah, so let's go to that Melbourne game, because it was a really good performance in so many ways from the Taipans, and you have a look at halfway through the second quarter, they're up almost double figures. They're still 7 points up by by halftime, sorry, and still leading, for the whole third quarter, and still in front during the fourth quarter as well. But things just dried up a little bit in the last 5 minutes. What did you see that sort of was the difference? Because up until then, they probably outplayed Melbourne for most of that game.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that the makeup of how they were scoring was right once again. The contributions off the bench just down a little bit, and with Deng going down, I feel like that was just such a huge loss for the lads. As he's been quite active getting to the free throw line and just been a handy presence. He's just been able to chip in and just take the pressure off a lot of those moments. But look, I think second game within a couple of days. Jordan Ngatai not as effective in that one, but still still warranted that starting five lineup, and 16 minutes for the game. But they just needed a little bit more from across the board, really, but especially from the bench, probably too much pressure on those starters to get it done, and they nearly did. But yeah, just the wheels fall off a little bit there as Melbourne sort of stormed home.
I don't like doing this, but in the game against the Hawks, Ngatai and Jerick went for 33 points between them, and they shot the ball great. Against Melbourne, they only combined for 7 points and shot two of seven between them, and they had 7 turnovers. So the difference in their output from game to game was pretty significant.
Well, I think the goal that you want for turnovers for a team is around the 13 mark. If you're really slowing the pace down, you'd probably set your turnover limit at 11 turnovers for the game. So I think with the faster pace and the propensity to score, in the 90s or 100s, you'd probably allow yourself 13 turnovers. So, 14 turnovers are probably just a bit careless with the ball, and that's going to cost them dearly. I think compared to Melbourne United's, they had 15 they had 15 too, so they're not going to be happy with that. But look, I think you're going to have bad shooting nights sometimes. It's what else do you do? What else are you bringing if you're not shooting well? I mean, those two guys are shooters. Their job is to shoot the ball at close to 40%. That's their role. So if they're not hitting those, then they do have to make sure that they're getting to the glass, that they're getting all those hustle plays and things that are still providing a contribution. So look, I mean, Ngatai goes hot for one game. Sometimes you're going to have those quiet games. You hope that you don't. But for both of them to go quiet, it's probably more of a rare kind of situation. Like there's a lower chance of that happening. But these other guys are going to have to sort of step up, or they're going to have to find ways to grind out a win when the going gets a bit tough.
So summing up, how do you look back on this first week at the NBL Cup for the Taipans, and what have you made of the tournament overall? Do you like it? Do you like that every club's now playing in Melbourne, during this time? And do you like the format change? Obviously, we're playing for points. Every quarter counts with a point. There's the coaches' challenge. What do you think, Loughz?
Well, a few people have mentioned it's a bit of a bugbear of theirs to, with this points per quarter thing. I mean, this is a system that was used in the pre-seasons, that's gone by, where you make it just a bit more interesting by having, this point system per quarter. One of the bugbears at this conversation that I had was that they said, oh, look, are the teams going to overplay someone just to win the quarter, a bit of load management? Are they going to go in the wrong direction and play a guy into an injury because they're trying to win the quarter? And I said, no, there's no way that the teams are caring about the points per quarter thing at the expense of a player injury. I mean, there is $300,000 at the end of this thing, right? Like maybe the last two games, it's a bit of that if it's close. But in terms of the actual points in all these games per quarter, like winning the quarter, as in to get the cup points, I don't think the teams are really worried about that at all. The biggest thing is the win, because they're focused on the bigger picture for sure. Now, maybe, like I said, the last two games, they might start go, well, hang on a minute, we're only a point away from 300k, and I can see the Taipan CEO go, hang on, boys, you're only a couple of points away from the 300k. Let's get that for the club. So look, the competition as a whole, fans can't really get to every single game and enjoy every single game. Like they're always too close together to really get excited and get the stadium filled every single game. Like, it's pretty tough. But at the same time, I do tip my hat to the league for trying something innovative and getting a deal done with Victoria government. Obviously, a lot of dollars at stake that they're trying to recuperate from a really tough year. So I think a little bit of consideration for their effort in that regard is certainly in order. I think the players, they're probably struggling a bit mentally without that life balance. So that's kind of tough. Like I do feel for these players with families and partners and kids and things like that. Like it'd be really tough, tough going. And we've seen, a couple of players, one player in particular with Rob Lowe heading back to New Zealand. Like we don't know the situation around that, but I know he does have a partner and a child, a newborn child.
Yeah.
He was there for the birth, and then 6 days later, I think he was off to Australia with the team and hasn't been back since. So once again, we don't know the details around why he's gone back, but he's back there.
We just can't imagine what that's like. I mean, it's not like they're going off on a week-long road trip. That was 2.5 months ago, and he hasn't seen his baby since. You're a dad. You were never away from your kids that long, were you?
Well, you go away for a week and enjoy the rest. Be in bed by 8:30, getting the best sleep ever. Like, come on, bring on another road trip. But the balance was you'd come home again and then, reconnect. But there's no chance to have that balance, and it's going to really wear on these guys pretty quick. So the only exciting part of the day really is the game. So I mean, for these players, they're really really hanging on. By the excitement and the adrenaline of these 2 hours that they can fulfill their day, and it's tough, and it's tough on everyone, I think. So whoever wins the championship this year, it's really going to be hard earned. Like there's no two ways about it. Whoever wins this one, I'm going to tip my hat to them. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Now we've got an update on our MVP tracker as well, Loughz, thanks to Cairns Total Physio. 2 big games in the NBL Cup, obviously, and it was Tim Lowcock who gave us the votes this week. And let me know your thoughts. So against the Hawks, he's gone Jordan Nartai, the 1 vote, 2 votes Mirko Jeric, and with 3 votes Scott Machado. And against Melbourne United, the 1 vote for Scott Machado, 2 votes Cam Oliver, 3 votes Court Noy. Happy with that?
Yeah, I think it's well deserved. Throw Nartai in the mix, absolutely, for that Hawks game. Just great to see his contributions come through. I like that there's some different names coming in at that 3 votes. Noy for that Melbourne United game. Great to see him really step up and bring the juice and earn those votes. So I think we'll get a pretty good picture as this season rolls on. Who are those extra contributors? I mean, we probably know it's a 2-horse race for the club MVP between Oliver and Machado, as you would sort of expect. But I'm really curious to see these other players step up and who from the club starts to really get the nod from our Cairns Total Physio guys on the ground there. And Tim Lowcock obviously in the bubble with the lads. For the full 3 weeks, and then able to come home as well. So it's not only the players in the bubble amongst all that hard action where there's a bit of life balance missing. It's also the support staff and the coaches. We certainly do appreciate everyone's efforts in there, and in particular Cairns Total Physio.
Leads us nicely into the one more thing I wanted to talk to you about, Loughz, before we get to our special guest. And then once we speak to our special guest, I've got another list of things I want to run through with you as well before we wrap up. So Majok Deng injured his knee. I think this is his best season of his NBL career so far. It was a shame, but he's also playing a big role in the team. So firstly, what do you think the injury means for him personally? And also, what does the team do to make sure that his absence isn't too damaging?
Well, it's obviously going to be a huge hole to fill for the Taipans, just finding those players that can fill that role. Obviously, Fab Krislovic plays multiple positions to fill gaps and things at the 3, 4, and 5. Nate Jawais had some quality minutes, I felt, even though it's even around the 10 to 12 minute mark, minutes of play, playing time. So he's going to have to step up a bit. And fill that hole, and then other players are going to have to probably play out of position. You spoke about Jordan Nartai possibly filling a position that's not normally his, a 3 or a 4, just holding it down. He's a physical player. I think he's strong enough. He's obviously going to be undersized, giving up some height advantage, but he might have to fill a bit of a role. Maybe the Taipans go small ball. And just put Oliver at the 5 and rotate the hot hand through the 3 and 4 position. So if Jordan's feeling it, I'm probably leaving him out there as a stretch the floor kind of guy. If Fab's hitting threes, then he gets the nod and will earn himself some more minutes. So we've seen actually Mike Kelly not be too bashful about giving some of these bench players some minutes. I mean, Fab Krislovic in that Melbourne game, 23 minutes. Obviously, that's with Deng going down. But, I thought he had a good contribution of 6 points.
He played well. Look at his numbers, 6 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. That's pretty handy.
And the big one, 8 boards. I mean, he's plus minus at -4. I mean, most, apart from losing a game, that's probably gonna happen. But it still felt like a pretty big contribution from him. And that'll give him confidence, him personally, to be able to put a good foot forward, and also Mike Kelly to give him the confidence to rotate and get those big bodies through in Deng's absence. But look, for Majok Deng, from what I can gather, it's the first major injury that he's had in his career. Not a whole lot of meat on the bones where he's going to get wear and tear injuries, I don't think. In terms of overload type of thing. So he's a pretty light player, but this might come as it would be a shock to him. As any player that hasn't had a big injury before. So he's going to have to go through a learning process with how to handle this and when to come back and what to push through. So with that, from what I can gather, he's, consummate sort of professional about his approach, and, he'll attack this with due diligence. And I think with, once again, the help from the lads at the Cairns Total Physio, they'll be able to form that good plan. But it's a tricky one. A 6-week one is no small injury by any stretch. You can have your ankle tweak, 1 to 2 weeks, and you sort of, you get used to what it feels like to play on a sore ankle. That's fine. But when it's an MGL slight tear in that knee or whatever it is, it's going to take a bit of restraint, if anything, just to handle that recovery process correctly. But I certainly have no doubt. I wonder if he comes out of the bubble and just starts the rehab now back in Cairns, waiting for the guys.
I was going to ask you that. I was wondering the same thing if he comes back to Cairns.
I'd say it's a pretty high chance if he's not back here already in Cairns. That would make sense. Get on the anti-gravity treadmill when it's time, and just watch the games and cheer the boys on from afar. So that's what they have available to them. That recovery process. I'm sure Tom will put him on a plan and get rolling that way. But no, we certainly wish him a speedy recovery. And like you said, he was playing the best ball of his career and had opportunity and was delivering. He had that one game where Coach Kelly started him on the bench as he was trying different rotations. That didn't really go down well for Majok. He didn't really like that at all. So he came back firing and lit a fire under his camp. So he was pumped to come out of that little situation and stamp his authority back on that starting five. But look, he's a handy player. I remember that one game in Cairns, just springs in his knees, just throwing down all sorts of angry dunks too, and then flexing at the Sudanese players on the bench. Right. So on the opposing team. So he gets fired up, and I think
that might have been Dingadell.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they were 20-point losses, but he was still flexing on them. But it was great to see that rivalry go. Those guys. I think a big sort of hurdle for the Taipans to overcome, and I'm sure just the way that they've had to fill the gaps. They seem like a team that's ready to step up. I mean, players that have their opportunity, they're ready to step up. Jordan Nartai got his opportunity a few weeks ago, and he's shown some really promising signs. So he's been stepping up. Noi and those players where we've said they're not getting to the rack enough, they're shooting too many 3-point attempts. They've started to switch that around and find that balance. So players are capable. Players are there. They've got their opportunity now. That's the thing. With Deng out, there's opportunity there, and players got to be ready to roll. And I think the mindset, the way Scotty Machado said, "Boys, are we for real? Let's do this." I think they're inspired enough to make that call for themselves and put their best foot forward now.
Let's move on to our special guest of this week, thanks to Staddon's Plumbing Company, Loughz. Now, this guy's a former teammate of yours at the Taipans, and I loved him as a player. He played with great energy. He was quick. He liked to attack, and he was a great defender. Unfortunately, his career's probably cut a little bit short through a knee injury, but he's remained a fantastic part of basketball in Cairns. He's now embarking on a coaching career, and I think he, without question, has a head coaching future, whether it's WNBL or NBL not too far away. He was part of the Boomers setup in town last week against the Tall Blacks for the Asia Cup qualifying game. Of course, I'm talking about Kerry Williams. What can you tell me about your time with him as a teammate, Loughz, in your early days?
Well, let's start right there with the Boomers call up. That is a massive coup for any aspiring coach, albeit a junior Boomers team coming to town. Under Adam Caporn there from the Centre of Excellence, a team coming up, and the assistant coaches. It's always an aspiration of all coaches to be able to do some work with the Boomers. So right now, as of last weekend, Kerry Williams is a Boomers assistant coach, and it's just an awesome thing. Great for him as a former player moving into that role as coaching. Great for him for the Indigenous community as well. Just a huge coup for that, and the basketball program going on through the Indigenous community. Now I'll rewind. So my first year here at the Taipans, at 2010, 2011, Kerry Williams in the sort of the peak of his career, on the squad, and he was a great player. Like he had a nice little game, and he wouldn't be speaking. He wouldn't say much like loud or anything like that. It wasn't a vocal kind of play. He let his game do the talking, and often you just get eye contact with him, talking about. Hey, let's check out a backdoor play here, or we'd be talking constantly, and he'd just understand the game. He'd read the game really well, and he unfortunately had that ACL injury in my first year there, and so we just couldn't get rolling for that sort of season with him in the mix. But just a talent and just a natural nous for the game, and obviously he's come up through with the Marlins. And all the juniors, of course, at Cairns Basketball, into the Marlins. The seniors won, the championship with the Marlins, and then getting his chance with the Taipans. And I just thought he was a great addition to the club, and great for the community as well. So it ticked so many boxes. And now, of course, he's been in the administration side with the club, and parallel with that, been coaching in an exponential kind of a ways. Really stepped up in the coaching environment for the reps, in Queensland as well. Yep. And so you just gradually putting in the time, putting in the work, putting in the hours. And a lot of hours, and that's not just coaching the reps side of things, and at Cairns Basketball, it's also the Indigenous program up in the Cape, and through government sort of funding as well, is able to get to more places under the Taipans banner as well. So there's a lot of groundwork that people don't see, and I think that's what. It possibly comes as a surprise. Oh wow, Coach, Kerry Williams is now with the Boomers. But for everyone that sees his day-to-day work, and everyone sees that what he does, it probably doesn't come as a surprise. But still, it's an awesome thing to see that progression, and for him to get the nod to represent Australia as the assistant coach for the Boomers. So just an awesome thing. And then obviously the game to be in Cairns, of course. Exciting thing. You obviously were all over the game and covered that one under Coach Adam Caporn. You were able to speak with him before the game. What were your thoughts for that game, and for Kerry Williams to be a part of the squad?
Firstly, for Kerry, it's fantastic just to show how far he's come. And I mean, above everything else, he's an incredible role model for the Indigenous community, and to show that not only can he be a player, but he's now thought of as one of the best coaches in the country. I think it's enormous. I don't think we can undersell just the importance of that, and what it does for every young Indigenous kid that now wants to play basketball. Knows that there's no limit on how far they can go. So I think that's the first thing that stands out to me. But as far as the Boomers, I think in a difficult situation where you knew none of the NBL players would be available, I think this was the absolute best way to go about it. You've got a bunch of kids playing who have all, for the most part, been working together for the last year without getting to play a game. They've just been training at the Centre of Excellence in Canberra and just playing against themselves. So they were craving a competitive game. So this was the best case scenario, and it also meant that they had some chemistry together. So I think that helped as well.
Yeah.
And as Adam Capon talked about, they're planning for the Paris Olympic Games in 2024. Must be now Loughz. So they're expecting some of these guys to be playing for the Boomers in the next Olympic Games. So that's almost the start of that process. So some of the things we saw, we'll without question see some of the guys that played in the NBA one day. We'll see them playing for the full Olympic Boomers team. So for a game that potentially meant nothing, in the end, I think was a really worthwhile exercise.
Oh, absolutely. There's never a time where, a Boomers game or a Boomers call-up doesn't mean anything. Like there's always eyes watching. There's always, coaches keeping tabs of players and assistant coaches and the work that they're doing. And sometimes, a coach just likes to have that familiar voice, that familiar face around the lads that, adds to the team chemistry. And Kerry Williams can certainly bring that. Adam Capon's doing a huge effort and a huge role for basketball at that centre of excellence. A lot of big names that we're seeing in the Next Stars program this year, Josh Giddey, even Justinian Jessup and all those kind of guys, Mojave King, they're all coming from the tutelage of Adam Capon down at the centre of excellence. So, it was just exciting to see that game come to Cairns, obviously, but those young players, some of them have got experience with NBL clubs already. I think it was, is it
Matt Kenyon? He spent a couple of years with the Bullets.
Yeah. Matt Kenyon, a couple of years with the Bullets already. So he's had a taste of the grown man's league as well. So these players are getting experience. So it's certainly no easy feat to make it into a Boomers squad. And certainly even harder to stay there. But for these young guys, it's great to see some talent out on the floor. And like you said, that they just couldn't wait to verse someone else. And it just happened to be Mika Vicona and his in his team of Australian residing New Zealand locals.
I'm glad you brought up Mika. You mentioned grown men, and that was going to be my segue to bring up Mika. But after our chat with Kerry Williams, I've got a question I want to ask you about Mika. But for now, thanks to Staddens Plumbing Company, let's get to Kerry Williams. Okay, back here on Talkin Taipans, and great pleasure to be joined by a former star of the Taipans, Kerry Williams. He's now doing great things, as we have already talked about on the show, Loughz, with his coaching. Kerry, how did we find you this week, and what was last week like being involved in the Boomer setup?
It's always an honour to represent your country, and obviously, it was, like I said, leading up to it, I was pretty shocked to get the call, but very proud and honoured to do it. So the week was unbelievable. We had some former Boomers call in and give the guys some experience and tell what it means to wear those colours and to represent your country. And then for me personally, it was just to sit down and have conversations with Adam Capon and Gordy McLeod and Jason Smith, just to have conversations with them about the game and just some of their experiences playing and coaching.
I mean, it really doesn't matter what the circumstances are. I spoke to Adam Capon about this last week. Once you're a Boomers coach, you're a Boomers coach for life, and it's the same for you. Now that you've been involved in the Boomers as a coach, it's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. You must be really proud of how far you've come in such a short time already as a coach.
Yeah. I think blessed is the word. Fortunate. It's been an unbelievable ride, and I guess having that on my, I guess I can add it to my resume now. And
absolutely.
But the key thing is that I've been looking at is how do I stay involved at that level and and keep my name floating around so that when things like that pop up, I do get those opportunities.
The thing I love that you've done already with your coaching is that you've coached men and women now already. You obviously have been coaching at the Dolphins. You've coached the Queensland state team, and now obviously getting involved with men as well. I mean, it just opens so many opportunities up, doesn't it? I mean, there's no reason why, moving forward, you couldn't work in the NBL, the WNBL, either NBL 1 competition, whether it's the men or women. I mean, by being involved in both, it just opens up so many opportunities. Is that something that you've sort of made sure that you've kept a focus?
Yeah, I guess for me, I started off coaching boys, and that was because Aaron Fern made me do it.
Yep.
he made me coach his son's Fern under-18 team, which had Kerry Williams in it. So he put me in charge of that. So that's where I started. But I guess for here in Cairns, I felt there was just a shortage of pathways for the girls and the women's side of basketball. So I felt like it was, the girls need more opportunities and more exposure, I guess. So that's where I'm at right now, is trying to build the girls side of basketball up here in Cairns. I guess being head of the Dolphins makes me head of the women's program, the girls program here.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that I find inspirational about what you're doing as well is that you're, as a role model for the Indigenous community as well, we just haven't seen many coaches that are from an Indigenous background in basketball at all. To me, for you to be able to now set that trend and to show what's possible, I think it's really something pretty special too. Is that something that means a lot to you as well?
Yeah, I get. Yeah. With my job with Taipans, that's my role to teach kids about opportunities and healthy lifestyles and the importance of education. So, for them just to see another aspect of the sport, and not just about being a sports star. You can be a coach, a doctor, a physio. They're all part of the sporting world. So, it's good to show the young business youth that.
I remember talking to you last year as well when we were leading up to the NBL's Indigenous round, and we talked about how far things have come, and it's so good now that recognition is there. And we talked about Paddy Mills at the time. The things that Paddy's now doing and starting up, and I know that you're involved in a lot of that with him as well. It's probably taken somebody like Paddy to lead it, but things have just come so far, haven't they?
Yeah, Paddy's done some great things. He's using his profile for the positive, and obviously, his league that he started around the country is really taking off. So hopefully we can see a lot more Paddy Mills, and obviously Nathan Jawais as well in the sport. On the boys' side, and then you got Leilani Mitchell and Ali Wilson, and those types that are doing some good things on the women's side. So
you mentioned Tamari Wigness as well. Obviously, you coached him when he was a young boy. It's great to see him now in the NBL. Unfortunately, not at the Taipans, but it doesn't matter where he's playing. It's just great to see him playing professional basketball.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. He's come a long way. He's matured a lot, and obviously growing as a young man. And I hope to see him get more opportunities, more playing opportunities with the Bullets. And I think he's going to be a big part of their puzzle moving forward. But it's great to see him there, and just like I keep saying, everybody that's played professionally in the NBL or even the NBA have got a connection to the north.
Yep.
The two Cedar boys are from Townsville. Tyson Demos' family's from up here in Townsville. Timmy Duggan played here in Cairns and spent a lot of time with the Marlins. Nate, Makadeni Morshu. Pretty much Deborah George, and the list goes on. Like we're all connected to the north.
Absolutely. As you mentioned before, you're still involved in the Taipans as well. Obviously, you keep a close eye on the way things are going. How have you seen the start to this season so far, and what have you made of the NBL Cup sort of a week into it?
With the club, it's been, obviously the results haven't been the greatest, and it's tough to watch, but I think the boys are right there. Just a couple of defensive errors in the end that hurt us, and obviously there's a lot of talent around the league. So the games, there's only little stretches they can lose you the game. But there's positive signs there. I think Mike's got to doing the right job, and hopefully he can get them playing the right way and get us on a winning streak. And with the NBL Cup, it's great. Like with things happening around the country, it's good to see a lot of basketball played basketball instead of sitting and waiting and hoping that something happens or something doesn't happen. So I think that the NBL Cup is a great, is a good idea, and it's good for the sport.
Absolutely. A lot of our listeners, obviously Taipans fans, will remember your playing career fondly. 105 games you played with the Taipans. It probably feels like a long time ago now. It's almost a decade ago that you had to retire with that knee injury. But how do you reflect back on your basketball career when you think about it?
No regrets. Obviously enjoyed it. I was, signed my first contract here in Cairns and playing in front of my family. My first pro game was a great experience. Obviously spending time with my teammates. That's probably the one thing I miss the most now is hanging out with your teammates every day, and it's like they're like your family, and don't get to see the Aaron Gabros and Dwayne Vales and Dusty Reichert every day. Now it's sort of just and the Matty Smiths, and so we just it's a text every now and then and see how you're going. But now we got our own families and lives, and that's probably the most I miss about the game is just hanging out with teammates and friends. But I guess also too just being there, just being in the NBL. It's something that it's a top league in Australia, and now it's recognised worldwide as a top league. And to say that I played there and played a few games there was hopefully my kids will see that. And I got two boys that my big boy older son plays basketball, but still doesn't believe I know what I'm talking about. So hopefully later in his track he gets to see some sort of highlight or something on me play, so he believes it.
You did have plenty of highlights. I remember watching your career fondly. Now you speak of former teammates. One of those is obviously Alex Loughton. He's my co-host here on the show. He's spoken very highly of you. That doesn't mean you have to do the same, because he's got plenty of time on this show to talk about himself and to remind us all how good he thinks he was. So tell us something we might not know about old Loughz.
Oh, Loughz. Loughz is a quirky guy. Loughz is a good value. When I did my knee, he was probably one of the guys that reached out, and he actually sent me this email to say, stuff that I had to do to make sure that I get back to where I was, and to stay focused. So, and obviously Loughzy, his role has changed to what it was back when he was playing with Perth and when he was overseas. He had to take on a leadership role, which I don't think was a natural thing for him, but he grew into that role and obviously led our club to some finals, and he was. I think that's a merit in itself. Just him changing his game to become a leader is something that players struggle to do, and he did it, and obviously helped our club and helped our club be successful. So, but yeah, Loughzy has a lot of road trips, and Loughzy loves to play games and loves his videos, and so he's probably got a hard drive there somewhere with stuff that probably can't see. So he's probably got the stuff on himself. So.
You're probably not surprised to find out that he's got a podcast now either, are you?
Nah. He's a shaker and a mover, and he's a great talker, and so good to see.
No, very good. That's probably enough about him. He doesn't need us talking about it too much more. But
no, I don't think he does.
But great to catch up again, Kerry, and I'm sure all of the Taipans fans will enjoy hearing from you again, and we'll make sure we stay in touch. But for now, thanks very much for joining us here on Talkin Taipans.
No, thank you. Thanks, Pikey.
All right, thanks very much for Kerry Williams for giving up his time to join us here on the Pikey Loughz Show. He's just a fantastic role model for so many people, and it was great for him to give up his time here on Talkin Taipans. I hope you all enjoyed his insights. Now, as I promised, Loughz, before we went to Kerry, I wanted to ask you about Mika Vukona. It was fantastic to get to see him play once more, but unfortunately it will be the last time we get to see him in a Tall Black singlet, and we've already seen him play the last of his 476 NBL games. You played a hell of a lot of games against him in that 4 spot. To me, he's the greatest warrior I've ever seen play on the basketball court, and I've said it for the last 15 years. He's my favourite player that I've watched in the NBL, and to get to know him, it's been an incredible thing because he's such a warrior on the court, but he's such a gentleman off the court. I know he never played for the Taipans. He spent plenty of time playing against the Taipans.
Yeah.
What was he like to play against, and what do you think now that his career, at that top level has now officially come to an end?
Well, obviously he was a massive thorn in my side. He's so strong, and being undersized, a bit small. He just had such a low, strong base. Surely he was better off playing rugby league or something like that with his physical strength. But in basketball,
perfect for the All Blacks, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Many players have played Tall Blacks and All Blacks in their same sort of career. But no, he's so hard to move. Very, very talented, very athletic, and just a true leader for any of his squads. And I think even Steve Adams in the NBA looked up to Mika Vukona the way he played when Steve Adams, as a 7-footer, absolute powerhouse in the NBA. He's looking up to Mika Vukona as a junior, going, man, I want to play like that guy. Like that's a pretty big. That's a pretty big, boost when you hear a name like that. Give you that vote of confidence. So, I mean, Mika Vukona, or as some of the Taipans fans mistakenly called him, Vika Makona, as in the Makona coffee. I thought that was funny. They go, "Oh, we miss Vika. Where is Vika Makona? I haven't seen him." I was like, "Guys, it's Mika Vukona." He's ripped out our Taipans' hearts a couple of times. He's won enough championships, so he's done it all, and he's rightly deserved all the success that he's had in 476 games. And with those New Zealand, those Tall Black tours, like those guys would actually, they'd all come together to camp, and then they'd to their training camp, and then they'd often be. They'd often fly earlier to a destination or whatever, and still be training. So as a group, as a team, they were actually together for like a month and a half sometimes, just to, in terms of building team chemistry and getting ready for a tournament. Like the way they did things is such a huge commitment, and so many more extra trainings and games that went into getting ready for those tournaments. So with, not as many players to choose from, not as big a player pool, they still punched above their weight. And when guys like Mika Vukona came into the squad, it just elevated them to, basically representing a country that had 50 million, not 4.5 million. Just hats off to what Mika has been able to achieve in his career. I didn't realize it was 476 games that you just said then. Really impressive. Certainly, he's decided to call it time and, move on to his next phase of life, and certainly wish him all the best. But he's a family man. He's a leader, a true leader. And certainly the Tall Blacks will miss him. And certainly his NBL clubs will all speak very highly of his time with them. So we wish him all the best.
Yeah, very well said, Loughz. I hope at some stage he gets to hear that, because I think he's such a humble man, but I think he deserves to hear just how highly people think of him, because I think he's played it down his whole career, and this is a chance for him to actually realise just how much he meant to basketball in Australia and New Zealand.
This episode of the Pikey Loughz Show is proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio, less pain, more life, and Statton's Plumbing Company, plumbers who care.
But we're here to talk about the Taipans, Loughz. We're talking Taipans. It's the Pikey Loughz Show, and we've got 2 huge games in the next week of the NBL Cup to look forward to for the Taipans. It starts Friday night, and it's a fascinating game. I can't wait for this one. It's the rematch of the semi-finals. I can't wait for Scott Machado against Bryce Cotton. I can't wait for Cam Oliver against John Mooney, and I can't wait for the Taipans against the Wildcats.
Absolutely, that rematch from last year. There's certainly the Taipans aren't getting over that taste that sour taste in their mouth that that team that won that semi-final was destined for greatness, and unfortunately ended up being the Wildcats. But I bet that the Taipans can't wait to roll the ball out and get rolling in their newfound sort of way they're approaching games. That they'd like to just unleash and kind of find that groove that they're looking for. But I think they're getting on the right track. So that'll be an exciting one on Friday night. It should be an absolute cracker.
How do they get the job done? Clearly, you can't let Bryce Cotton and John Mooney go for 60 points like they did a couple of days ago.
Absolutely. You almost concede Bryce Cotton's going to do Bryce Cotton such things. So it comes down to limiting those hustle plays from a Mooney. Guys getting on those loose balls on the floor and just demanding that they own the rock. It's that concerted effort, that full buy-in, that put your body on the line type of defense. That kind of thing that's really going to, make everything else tough. Because, Bryce Cotton's pretty talented. I'm not saying, you let him go for 40, but you make him earn his 25 points. He's pretty tough. Like, he's an absolute assassin. But, everyone else on that squad, I think the Taipans match up quite well, if not better, to be able to, put the clamps down where they need to. So it's everyone to a man, having 100% concentration at the moment that they're on the floor, that they can get the job done. Otherwise, Coach Kelly's going to have to rotate the next guy in and demand a combination of 5 players that can get it done.
Now, when you're talking to the media and you're asked about a rematch the next season from the finals the year before, you always play down and you always say, that doesn't mean anything. This is a new season.
Oh, but it does, Pikey. It does. It always does.
What's the reality?
I don't care how long it's been. I don't care what kind of break. It always does. That sour taste comes back. Oh, who we got next on the schedule? Let me check the pages. Oh, the Wildcats. And then you start going, oh yeah, the Wildcats. That's it. That's right. They stole something from us, and they stole our bike. You're like, when you're a kid, if someone stole your bike, that's probably the worst thing that can ever happen. You're like, oh, I'm going to go back and take back what is mine. So that'll be the juices flowing for those guys, and certainly with Majok Deng out, and then they can rally almost around that and say, look, this is for Deng, this is for all of us. He can't be here on the battleground. We've got to cover him as well. Let's band together. So, I'd really like to see that extra physicality come out. Just a bit more spice on those box outs when Mooney thinks he's just gonna, stumble in and get his put back dunk on a missed 3 ball that he shot. You'd like to think that the players, the Taipans, are going to be on it. And this is a retribution, 100%. Make no mistake about it.
And then only 2 days later, it's a backup game against the Brisbane Bullets. And to me, no matter what happens on Friday, this is the sort of game that the Taipans have to win. It's a team around the same record. If they're going to make a run for it, this is the sort of game they just can't afford to drop, I don't think. Yeah,
look, this double header, basically, this 2 days sort of double header. Is it another situation where you're happy with the split? Yeah, I feel like this is the one where it'd be great just to lock away 2 solid wins, knowing that you've been building momentum those last 2 games. It would just be a big boost for the camp. Being in this sort of quarantine-y, NBL Cup sort of situation. Looking for a big performance, I guess, against Brisbane. Hopefully they can keep Sobey at bay with this sort of transition game, and then obviously just righting that wrong, that last play in that overtime effort. Where Law got to the rack. All teams got to be buying, and obviously Noy's going to have an extra motivation to lock down on that game as well.
Okay, so we look forward to those 2 games over the next 3 days. But I've enjoyed catching up with you again, Loughz, for the Pikey Loughz Show. This has been a jam-packed show. There's been plenty of ground to cover. Thank you for joining me once again. I'll sign off and leave you to have the final word once again.
Look, don't lose touch with the Taipans. Even though they're down in Melbourne, this is the time where the Orange Army's got to band together and lock into these games. Support the lads, and let's bring them home throughout this NBL Cup, and then we'll see them again in a couple of weeks' time.